Greetings, friends, and welcome to a special Friday edition of Into the Necrosphere, celebrating the spirit of the black metal underground. On this installment of the show, I'm going to be talking to Cwellere of the band Aldorfrea. Some of you will know that they've just released their debut record by Kingdom Cold on Matriarch Records. I've been particularly high on this band ever since I heard their demo. And so I was delighted to hear that they had been picked up by a label, and of course their debut record didn't disappoint. So Cwellere and I spoke about how the band got started, his own personal journey into black metal, as well as a host of other topics. That will be coming your way very shortly, but before we get to that, some of you will also recognize the name Nathan Glover. He's been on the show several times and will be on the show again almost certainly in the not-too-distant future. His own band, Gravier, is absolutely ripping. But he also has another musical concern, Gutter Prince Cabal, a record label that he started with a couple of his bros, really with a mission of showing off the very best that the Asia-Pacific underground scene has to offer. They are about to put out a record by a band out of New Zealand called Vicissitude, which I believe you all absolutely have to hear. This is what it sounds like. The song is called NN6. It's off the forthcoming record, Neolithic Necro Cannibals. That'll be released by a band called Vicissitude out of New Zealand, courtesy of Gutter Prince Cabal. And as I said, I will definitely have Nathan on the show at some point in the not too distant future to give us an update on what's happening with the label. But great to see them putting out some quality tunes. Friends, if you're new to the podcast, make sure that you elbow drop the subscribe button on your podcasting platform of choice. I post new shows every Tuesday for free on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, and what have you. Sometimes, as you see, I also bless you guys with an episode on a Friday. Also, follow me on social media, and if you really want to show your love and support for the show, leave me a 5-star review, leave me a comment, a like, share the show, and also buy some merchandise from my Into the Necrosphere Teespring store, which you can access via the link in the description to the podcast. And then finally, if you are not yet doing so, now is your cue to immediately begin following my fellow horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. On Mondays, you've got Horrorwolf 666 presented by Brandon Legion. On a Wednesday, Mike Hill brings you Everything Went Black. On a Thursday, he returns alongside Jeff Kashid and Mike Scandado with Necromaniacs. And then on a Sunday, my friend Carl Hikara delivers the Devil's Sermon with Soul Knox. All of those are high-quality, high-value podcasts that more or less cover your entire week. On this particular show, there's not going to be my usual reviews and news, given the fact that it's a special edition of Into the Necrosphere, but still plenty for you to get stuck into, not least of all, my guest, Cwellere of Aldorfrea. So welcome to Into the Necrosphere, which, you know, for you is probably now going to be the greatest achievement in all of your career to date. No, actually, I'm pulling your leg. I do want to start off by saying congratulations on the full length, and also congratulations on signing with Matriarch. I was so chuffed when I saw you guys were going to put out the Hag, because as I said when I played the demo, and I think I repeated it quite a few times on the show. Beyond that, I was listening to the music you guys put out, and I just couldn't fucking believe that a label hadn't picked it up yet.
Yeah.
And actually, as it turns out, I spoke to the owner of Matriarch, and she told me you guys were actually already signed by the time that the release came out that I put on the demo of the week. So I will claim the mistake came from looking at Metal Archive and seeing you guys as unsigned, which is why I was on there.
Right.
But either way, kudos to her for having fucking exceptional taste, but kudos to you for making things happen, man.
Yeah. One thing I think about Metal Archives is that I think I set up Metal Archives initially around when the EP was coming out in Deepest Isolation, but it does get edited, and as far as I'm aware, and I've not looked at it in a while, but it sort of doesn't. It's not very up to date, put it that way. So the sort of like the inception dates are correct. Like, yeah, we did start in sort of May 2021 last year. But apart from that, yeah. But no, it's been a really cool experience, particularly like since we signed with Matriarch, and we've got sort of Simon Smithing on guitar and things like that. It's been going really swell.
How did the Matriarch relationship come about? Because they themselves are reasonably new also.
Yeah.
I think you guys are like their maybe third or fourth band.
Something like that. I think at the time it was a case of looking into. There was a lot of sort of requests for when the Deepest Isolation came out. It was digital only, because we didn't really know how it was going to be received and things like that. So there was never even any intention. And then a lot of people were asking for physical and things like that. And I thought, I'll look into it. But at the time, I wanted to start writing for the first full length, which is when a lot of different changes started happening. And I kind of thought, well, I'd like to see if I can get a bit of help with that. So yeah, I reached out to a few labels. I'd already had a few labels reach out to us since the release of the EP, but and it just seemed that we got talking, and she'd offered to do some like a merch run for In Deepest Isolation, which went really well. And yeah, and then we talked about the first album, and then when it was done, we'd sort of send it as you would with a record label and send it on. But she seemed the most sort of passionate about what my intentions were with it and things like in the music. So it was just a pretty natural kind of thing, really. In the end, it was the obvious choice to make, and then obviously we met up and with contracts and stuff like that, and it just kind of blossomed from there.
You got the lawyer to look over it, and you said, "I'll expect my money in a fucking steel suitcase before you get the masters of this record."
The alleyway down here is quite narrow, but by the truckload, yeah, absolutely, just pour it out. Or maybe like Scrooge McDuck, do you know, where he just dives into all of his money, like
yeah,
something like that, yeah. But still waiting for that.
No. Question for you: Had you been in any bands prior to Aldorfrea?
Yeah, I've been in. It was more of a sort of, we were like a hardcore kind of punk, heavy metal sort of band, Target Renegades. I was in that band for about 8 or 9 years, something like that. It was basically just, it's like a with my friends sort of band, and then we played a whole bunch of shows. Did a few releases, but no, the foray to black metal only started last year. I've been a black metal fan for many years, but I've never really got into it myself. And then with the whole pandemic thing going on, I was trying to find some less conventional black metal to listen to, and catchier black metal I wanted to listen to at the time. And I just thought, well, just have a go of it myself, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
As you were looking for some of this more unconventional black metal to listen to, what sort of stuff did you find?
I started listening to a lot of I think one band that was a massive influence of starting the project was actually Craft. Heard the song Again by Craft, and that I was like, wow, that's an absolute banger. I started listening to some more obscure stuff, like like a bit of Deathspell Omega, Bloodhouse Nord, bands like that. Sarastus is another one that I've been listening to recently. Yeah, and it was just sort of finding from what I'd been used to, which had been a lot of your typical, your old school black metal, which I think is probably pretty evident with the releases we've done, but a bit more, some that are just a bit more off the wall, a bit more experimental. Is it Ved Zender, I think, as well? They were something just a bit different. I know they're not for everyone, but it was just something a bit different to listen to. So yeah, and it was just like, well, I'll have a crack at it myself, and here we are.
Jesus Christ, dude. I'm so impressed because, like I said, when I heard the demo, I think one of the things that blew me away was just how fully formed it sounded. Like it, like oftentimes I'll get sent stuff by bands, and you can hear they're maybe 3-4 releases away from putting out something that's got substance, or you'll put bands out, you'll hear bands that are unsigned, and you kind of quickly realize why they're unsigned. But with this, it when I first heard In Deepest Isolation, like what blew me away was like, this sounds like a band that's been doing it for a project that's been around for a while. Like it sounds like a seasoned pro. Yeah. And then you listen to the full length, and the full length is like a step up from that, like a big step up. So this is why I'm sitting here gobsmacked that your experience in black metal is literally 2 years.
Yeah, there's no kind of deep story to it. Unfortunately, it's I'm a huge lifelong black metal fan, and I dabbled in music, and I wanted to try it for myself, and it's the way in which the sort of the black metal community is kind of embraced. It's really cool. Like I really didn't expect the response to the EP, but the response to the full length has been incredible. And yeah, we couldn't really ask for more, to be honest, from in terms of reception point of view, but certainly not something I'm taking for granted, because it is, a very short space of time. We've got 2 releases out, and yeah, it's going well.
Well, I was going to say, like with that In Deepest Isolation demo, were you surprised when people started picking it up and responding to it?
Yeah. I think what I wanted to do with sort of every release was for a release to serve its purpose, and In Deepest Isolation was me wanting to tell these stories through music, as I've done very much more with the full length, but it was to give us a platform and a bit of a presence online. And then it sort of kind of got a whole lot bigger. And the response was fantastic, and kind of spurred me on to, as soon as the EP was done, to start writing the full length. And that's kind of where everything just sort of completely changed, and the way that the music was, written, or band members, things like that, that musicians was using at the time. That's when it all sort of changed around, and then it took a while to get to where it should be, which was, sort of sometime after Christmas, where we were really able to kick on. It was mainly with, I think, with Simon joining, agreeing to join into the project with him. He's already got his own big presence in the community as well. So once I had him on board, and I was able to chat to him every week, and I think it made it a lot easier, the whole process a lot easier to get it done, get it to how I imagined it, really.
Yeah. Now, here's a question for you. You were talking about influences earlier. Were you firstly, were you grossly offended by my saying that there's like the record riffs off of Inquisition? Like, I could hear a very not bad in a bad way, because I love Inquisition, but I could hear a strong Inquisition influence there, especially around kind of bloodshed upon the Imperial Altar, upon the Celestial Zenith, and probably the two preceding albums before that. And I hear some of that influence in your voice as well. Like, there's definitely like a hint of Dagon in the styles.
Right, yeah. I'm really surprised with the Inquisition and not Immortal, because that's what everyone else has gone with. But
I got the Immortal, but Inquisition was more prominent. And my feeling was, I hope he's not going to sit watching this review and going, that fucking son of a bitch compares me
no, not
at all.
I absolutely get it. It's just with Inquisition. I think with just touching on like the Immortal thing, I think if you're going to write songs with, don't get me wrong, I love Immortal, but if you're going to write songs that are about events, disasters that happened around the winter time, and you have frog vocals, that comparison's always going to be made, and I think it's really cool. Inquisition, yeah. I mean, again, I really do like those frog kind of vocals, and that's how I tend to sing. It came very naturally to me when doing the full length. It kind of seemed like the right kind of sound, and those bands are definitely an influence, but I wouldn't be able to sing it any other way, I don't think. I think with the newer stuff that we're going to be doing, there is, I've been throwing in clean vocals, a lot of choir and things like that, and it's really cool, and it's really, fun to explore. But the base of it, I really enjoy doing those vocals. And I think that the idea of Cwellere is to sort of be this kind of almost like peasant-like kind of creature from old England, where he's trying to convey these stories to people and tell a tale with the backing of music. So that's why you'll notice that in songs like Quelmstow or a few others, where it will switch from the third person narrative to the first person narrative, because it's as if it's telling the story. So that's how I sort of see the song. But when it comes to like the actual, the music and the sound, absolutely, yeah. I can see why you think, Inquisition, Immortal, any kind of sort of like Dimmy Borg or Shagrath, that kind of thing. It's there, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and just thinking about those Inquisition records I mentioned, those three. I mean, the last one was atrocious, but the ones before that, especially Bloodshed upon the Empyrean Altar,
yeah,
just fucking incredible. I mean, like I'm whenever I listen to it, I'm like, again, you have to separate art from the artist. Although I saw him on the Router reviews channel the other day, and I must be honest with you. I mean, they didn't talk about anything particularly sinister, but he seemed like a reasonable dude to me. I mean, I do question sometimes how much of the stuff that he's accused of is real or not. I don't know, but I know nothing. He was never found guilty of anything, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I'm aware. So, but either way, art separated from the artist, those are fucking incredible records. Nothing will take away from that. But this interest in like Old English history and things like that, where did that come from?
Well, I've been, history's just been a subject I've always been interested in, and I think when it comes to black metal, there's something very, it's a branch of metal where you do get to sort of be very. It's very emotional, but it's very. You can tell a story with the music, I feel, and a lot of black metal is Satan, Satan this, and this and that, and it's that sort of, it's been for me. It's been and done. It's been and done. I've no real interest in religion in that kind of way. Like it just doesn't interest me. So I felt that rather than singing about what typical sort of black metal is, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I listen to that all day, every day anyway. So, but for me, I think just to keep it a bit more interesting for me, it's just maybe showing that that there were some horrific things that happened in English history, but old English history, which doesn't quite have the limelight that maybe you sort of like your medieval Middle Ages kind of thing has. So it's cool to sort of learn something new. That's exactly it. It's learning about something all the time and then getting to explore it through music as well.
Yeah. Can you tell me a bit more about some of the stories?
Yeah. So, for example, you've got let's say Candida Navis, which is a story. But Candida Navis translate from Latin of the White Ship. So the song's about the White Ship disaster. Sort of like the 11th century, something like that. It was a boat coming from Normandy back to England. It was, but it was filled with royals. It was filled with the heir to the throne. So long story short, it hits a rock. It hits a rock sticking out the sea, and it crashes, and the heir ends up dying trying to save his sister. And the significance of that is that because there was no legitimate heir to the throne, it meant that the whole country just descended into anarchy, civil war. So that's kind of what that explores. And then you've got Immersed in Suffocating Snow, which was the Lewis Snowdrop, which was about an avalanche many years ago, where over Christmas, an avalanche took place by a cliff. They tried to warn. So there's poor houses at the bottom of the cliffs. They tried to warn the community of this avalanche. Didn't want to leave the homes, and as you can imagine, chaos ensued. I mean, the opening track, Northern Broga, Battle of Bernabra in 937, I think it was, and it was sort of Ethelstan, the first king of England, winning a massive victory in the north against invaders, the invaders, the Vikings, the Scots, the Welsh, the Irish. It was a massive. So it's that kind of thing. It doesn't necessarily mean sort of one. It has to be battles. It has to be this. It's just a few different things. Like obviously you've got the Hag as well. You've got Leech Draka. So yeah, it's just spotting. It's just spotting a few different things in history and bringing them to life as much as you can.
Yeah, and especially in England, but I mean, it's actually, I was about to say, especially in England, it's true of most countries. Yeah. There's such a wellspring of just incredible stories and really dark things, like dark subject matter that lends itself very well to black metal. That you almost have sort of an endless font of inspiration that you can draw from. And you don't necessarily always have to do the in which way are we going to glorify Satan with this particular song? What angle are we going to take for devil worship on this song?
Exactly. I mean, it was like with the EP. So you had Worm Cellar, and I suppose that's as close to a satanic song I've gotten, but that was more about the perception of hell and Satan stuff back then. So, but that's as close as I've really gotten. I've ever really, gotten to, and I've done interviews with web signs and things like that before, where they have kind of asked me about religion and why don't you sing about these kind of things, and it's just like it is being done, and it's being done, and it's cool. Like I say, it's cool. I listen to it all the time, but it's what's going to make me stand out by, for one, singing about something that pretty much everybody in black metal does, and B, something that I'm just not that interested in personally if I'm making music.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you have to sing about something that's authentic to you, like and authentic to your own experience. If you, if you sang about Satan when you have zero interest in it, or you're not singing about, because a lot of bands, the satanic thing is like, it's a means of expressing rebellion. Like, I often think a band like Marduk do it very, very much in the spirit of that. So, same with to a degree Funeral Winds, and I think actually Inquisition as well. But I think if that's not something that is authentic to you and a natural expression and an extension of you as an artist, then it comes across as being very trite, I think is the right word. And in a weird way, like, I think even though people aren't necessarily with black metal paying a huge amount of attention to the lyrics, certainly not the initial few times that they listen to it, I do think that that inauthenticity actually comes across in the music too. And I think no matter what people say, I think people generally tend to pick it up. Is my view. So you have to go with something, I think, that has actual meaning to you, because that's going to then come out in your performance of it as well.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I would really like to hope that came across with Our Kingdom Code, because I really, really enjoyed singing those songs and about those stories. So I mean, if you were to sort of maybe, re-listen to it knowing that, then yeah, there is a lot of passion in it, absolutely. Particularly from the first song to the last, like, the last song is obviously a very sort of quite deep and emotional song, but from the very start, which is just, here we are, this is, what we sound like now, and and it was, but I think there's a lot of positive expression on the album, particularly because of the way that the process ended and how positive everything was, and sort of being able to express yourself in that way, which was something I obviously didn't do on In Deepest Isolation, because I didn't, even though I wrote all the lyrics and the songs, but didn't actually perform the vocals. But it seemed like I could really make a big step forward if the vocals are like this, then I can do the songs how I imagine them to sound, sort of thing. And I don't think that's why I think it's such a logical step up from In Deepest Isolation, because I wouldn't have done 8 songs with, the way that they were written on the EP, or the way they were performed on the EP. I think it needed, a bit of mixing up, and that's something I'll take forward as well, onto, future records as well. I'll always try and say, well, that was good, but let's throw this into the mix. I'd never want, and to release another Thy Kingdom Code straight away, because it's just more of the same. So we'll always I'll always keep trying to evolve and see where it goes.
Yeah. In terms of the kind of historical subject matter and things like that, how deep into the research have you actually gone?
Well, I think one of the deepest dives I've sort of done was probably about maybe for Leech Draka, I think. Finding, or even coming up with the project name Aldorfrea, like that's it was something that was found in some, it's not a very well-known term even in Old English, in very, very few texts. And obviously when it comes to researching, there is not actually a lot of, you've got things like, obviously you've heard of like Beowulf, but that's one of the only surviving Old English poems, really. So when you do research a song, it does go very, very deep, and it takes a long time to, collate everything together and decide if that's something that, I'm interested in. Actually, you really, that's so cool. Like, I'm going to start, and then you research it more, then you find the lyrics, and then I might have already had an idea for, a melody and a song musically already. I'll see if it applies to that well, and then you work the vocal melody lines around it to get the hooks. And but yeah, in terms of the historical research, yeah, absolutely, it does go very deep. And there were particular songs like on the album that were just like, yeah, a few days just sort of glued to my phone trying to find as much information as I could, and watching whatever YouTube documentary I could on it, and then sort of make a decision from there.
Yeah. I go through those phases as well. I once spent an entire Christmas basically watching Chernobyl documentary. He's stuck.
Oh, right, yeah.
I mean, and then another Christmas, I ended up spending just watching documentaries about life in North Korea. So I go through these phases where
Yeah.
I'll pick on one particular piece of subject matter, and then I'll roll into that obsessively until I feel like, okay, I've done every single thing I can there. Then I'll move on to the next thing. But I was about to say also, like from a historical perspective, the one thing that I think is even more trite than singing about the devil is the constant singing about all of the sins of the Catholic Church and things like that. I mean, it's fine to come at it from particular certain angles, but when it's like the 9,000th fucking concept record about kids being murdered in the Catholic Church, it's like, oh Christ Almighty! Like,
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Where it does depend on what angle you come at it from. That if you're just going to be sort of so linear as to do it as for the intentions that you say, then yeah, it would be. There are ways to approach it. Like, for example, if you wanted to approach something about the Catholic Church, something that I've been researching recently is the punishment of being immured, and it was sort of being walled up to die, and it was a punishment for monks and nuns that would break the vow of chastity with each other.
I'd say engage in sins of the flesh.
Exactly, yeah, sins of the flesh. So
Yeah.
that's exactly it. So that kind of thing, I think you can make it interesting, but you could say that about, again, you could come back to the Satanism thing, and they said there maybe are ways, but as you say, that a lot of bands are so linear with it that you're just like, well, but yeah, all right, you sort of get the point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like we all know the Catholic Church are a bunch of scumbags. So
yeah,
let's think about what we can talk about next. I actually think, from a religious perspective, I think the theological attack, Marduk did it exceptionally well on Romans 5:12. I mean,
yes.
that was like there was a very well thought. I was very surprised when I heard that record for the first time, because I was like, I never figured, or I pegged Marduk for a band that would put that much thought into a record and that much thought into the concept of an album. Previously they'd done a lot of the World War II stuff, and they'd obviously done a huge amount of the Satan stuff. But with this, it was a much more intelligent, and it felt a lot more elevated as well than just the average, like, just screaming devil and then kind of going on to the next song and doing the same thing.
Yeah. Obviously, Marduk do have their sort of the satanic moments, as well, goes without saying. But yeah, I'd say that particular record they do incredibly well. I think I just find it refreshing when you do get it something a bit different, like 1914, for example. Like Fire and Weapons Meet. That was one of my favorite albums from last year. That was just like, but it was just so cool to just sort of. The way in which like the album started and finished was, I think it was that album where it had like the old timey kind of war radio jingly kind of music, and I was just like, oh, this is going to go off in a minute, this. And it was just stuff like that, just something a bit. It doesn't have to go away, it doesn't have to be an entirely new concept, but just approach it in maybe a different way than you would. It's just like, the Satan. Yeah.
Well, 1914 are a great example of a band that did those things from a different way. Like, I think one of the songs that they have on that record is basically like singing the letter that the military sent to family, like when their son had died, and stuff like that. I just thought it was such a brilliant thing to do. And then, exactly as you say, those like 1915, 1916, whenever it was from, those songs being played and sounding like they're being played over a gramophone. It just like, it takes you to that place. And then it makes every single song after that feel so much more immersive, which is not an easy thing to do when you think about the fact that you're dabbling in modern music. And I think it's hard to take that style of music and then transport you into that place authentically, right? But they give you just enough of a taste of the time to then go, okay, well, we're gonna keep you there, but we're gonna to layer this music that we're doing over that.
Yeah.
Which it kind of, as you've been talking about it now, and I go back in my head thinking about Thy Kingdom Cold, I think you managed to do that very effectively on quite a few of those songs, especially the first song and Immersed in Suffocating Snow.
Yeah. I think Immersed in Suffocating Snow was written with, I think it was the second song that was written. Yeah, it was the second song. And yeah, the intention was to try and, well, immerse, pardon the pun, people as much as you could to get them into that, that sort of situation. Then you've obviously got the bit of synth in there as well to give it that bit more of atmosphere of just feeling the vocals, just a bit more of an echo effect, as if it's sort of in like a blizzard, that kind of thing. Yeah, I think there is a couple of I think Candida Navis, we did it with the, like the bass solo and that sort of like instrumental bit in the middle, and it cuts right back into, it's right back into the heavy. And it's challenging, but that's the fun part about it. It's how can you make this not just a standard black metal song? How can you make it so that you're getting some kind of visual inspiration as well as you're listening to the music?
Yeah. And again, that's the great thing about black metal. It can be a very visually evocative style of music if you do it right. Like I'll never forget. I can't remember whether this is. No, this was Plague Angel. It wasn't. It wasn't Roman. No, actually, I take that back. It was Romans 5:12. There's a song on Romans 5:12, and I need to remind myself of the name. That's like just this. It's like this very like medieval instrumental. And I remember driving home from having visited some people in Banbury. It's 1651, I think, is the song. No, actually not.
Yeah.
Is it 1651 or Limbs of Worship? I think it might be one of the two. But anyone who knows the album knows what I'm talking about. Anyway, I was driving back from Banbury. I took the wrong turn off to get onto the M40, and I ended up going into Warwick. And the route that I took literally like had me go down this road, and then as you sort of coming out of the road, Warwick Castle is literally right in front of you, and it was in front of me right as that song was playing, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna just this seems like like divine intervention. I'm gonna pull over and I'm gonna go to Warwick Castle for the day, and I'd never been. It wasn't long after I'd moved to. Actually, no, it was probably about 7 or 8 years after I'd lived here, but I'd still hadn't moved to. Still hadn't visited Warwick Castle, but that kind of visual, that visual experience of having seen the castle and having heard that song at the same time, like it'll never leave me. And they, like I said, I just think like they are a great example of somebody a band who's able to kind of evoke that visual image extremely well.
Yeah, Marduk are a great example. I mean, even when Marduk do, when they do the sort of even like the World War II kind of stuff, I think when you listen to the record Front Shrine, where you've got the title track of that, you've got the Blonde Beast, the songs like that really do that so well in taking you into feel like 1914 do, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is the more sort of the atmospheric where they can sort of really, really drag you in. And as you say, that track you mentioned as well, yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, that is the main goal, is that I would like the songs to be not just it's black metal, that sounds however it sounds, but what's the story behind it? And I think that's why I try to make vocals as coherent as possible as well. I think my accent does come out in a few songs, but yeah, I think that's the thing, is that it's all about the narrative for me as well, and getting that sort of the visual of what's happening, the want to learn more about this kind of thing.
Yeah, I think you're being a little hard on yourself by saying your accent comes out. You don't hear it.
That's good. That's good.
It's I actually think what you did very well with your vocals is I've talked an awful lot about this on the podcast, but I think the phrasing of your voice was really good. You've got a great sense of rhythm in your voice. You've got a great sense of applying the rhythm to the riffs. listening to the record, I'm stunned that it's a debut record by somebody who's not been doing this for a lengthy period of time.
No, I think that influence comes from maybe even sort of outside of black metal, sort of growing up listening to bands like like Iron Maiden, like a fan of like Blind Guardian, Sabaton, where they are able to sort of create hooks through vocal melody lines, and that's what I try to bring with every song, and the music that we're doing at the moment as well. Like we're really sort of trying to make it a bit more memorable, like because I know that there's black metal classics that I absolutely adore. I couldn't tell you a single lyric from them because like I don't know what can either barely hear the vocals or the just the way it is. But that's all part of it. That's part of that atmosphere that they're trying to create. That's really cool. But yeah, I think sort of like melody, like vocal hooks are really important for me to sort of just keep it catchy, because that's the intention of the project in the first place. Keep it catchy and just keep people engaged as much as I can.
There's very few bands, I think, that can get away with using vocals in the way that you've just described now. Bloodhouse North is one of them. I think on the most recent Bloodhouse North record, I think he manages to get away with it, even though the vocals are so far buried into the mix. Like if you listen to it on a shitty system, it's going to sound like an instrumental. The Last Inferno record, I thought, they managed to do it as well. And again, I mean, those vocals are completely incoherent, but it's a rare exception in my view where, somebody's able to do vocals in that style and actually get away with it. I think more often than not, it sounds bad to me. It sounds really stupid.
Yeah, I think Bloodhouse Nord is, it's one of those where I wouldn't necessarily listen to them for the vocals because they're so sort of, they're quite almost like psychedelic and very out there and very experimental. If I was to listen to them for the vocals, it's kind of like, well, it's not. Well, as you say, like they're so buried in there that it's kind of like that they're there, but you're not really bringing them to life. But I think when you're really trying to push a narrative, when you're really trying to tell a tale, you want that story to be told vocally as well as through the music. Because the music can set the tone, but it can't tell you what's actually going on. So that's the beauty of Aldorfrea for me, is that hopefully people like the music and they learn something cool about it as well. And I think that was a really cool feeling about the black metal promotion. The black metal promotion premiere that we did. You've got so many people in the chat asking, well, what does Northern Broga mean? What's a Quelmstow? What's Langham Seath mean? And what they're going on Google trying to research what googling what the words mean, and I'm just sort of there to tell them like and explain it, and like, oh yeah, that's cool, yeah, well, what's this about? And that's the thing, and it just creates a conversation of something that you sharing a common interest with people then, and it's a really cool way to go about it.
How did the black metal promotions thing happen?
They did the EP in Deepest Isolation, because that originally started out with when I was writing in Deepest Isolation, I also got into the black metal promotion sort of community through Discord and things like that. Sort of met a couple of people in there, particularly Troll, who did the vocals and the drums for the EP, and we just sort of said, look, you might be able to get it on black metal promotion. If it's with it being people from the community, because I think it was Mio who did the artwork. She was in the same community as well, Discord server. So yeah, she did the artwork. So it was just a case of us saying, I had a guitarist at the time as well from Germany, and it was a case of will you play it? And then obviously that was a big help in getting us recognized. And then when it sort of came to Thy Kingdom Cold, it was like, do you want to do it again? And he was like, yeah. So, and they're always it's always a great feeling. It's like a natural high with sometimes with when you've got so many people so enthusiastic about the music, and the interest and the engagement. But yeah, no, I've been in the community for quite a bit, in and out, sort of just popping in from time to time whenever I can and checking out a few projects and things like that. But yeah, they've for me personally, yeah, they've been great since day one, like in terms of support and things like that.
Yeah, I was always wondering how bands get on there. Like, do they submit stuff to black metal promotions and it goes on? I reached out to the dude and asked him whether he wanted to be on the podcast, and this was probably about 18 months ago. And he was just like, "No, I want to stay anonymous, and I don't want to show my face."
Yeah.
Which I said to him, fair enough. And you do a phenomenal job. I've discovered so many great bands through listening to your channel.
Yeah.
But I was always curious as to how people get picked up for that, and how they end up, being featured on the channel.
Yeah, it was that was it. It was a case of being involved with them in that community, just sort of, and then with it be with a few other people being involved from Black Metal Promotions server, and that it was more of a case of we could just sort of say, it's a collaboration project. He obviously liked the EP, and then when it came round to the album, even though technically there was no one from Black Metal Promotion on the album this time, it was a case of it just like, do you want to do it again? And he listened to it and he was like, yeah, I'll put you on. And it was just, just had to find a date, and yeah, but yeah, it wasn't. I don't know how difficult it is. I have been told that it's this, without coming across as smug or anything, but I have been told that it can be quite, he doesn't just put anybody up. Basically, I think he is quite picky about what he does put up, and I mean rightly so. But yeah, as far as getting on there, that's all I really know. I guess we just kind of asked and we got, and you don't get. So
yeah. And how much of an impact did that have on the name recognition of the band, and the amount of attention that the band was getting?
Yeah, it got about I think about 8,000 views on YouTube or something, which is obviously it's incredible for something that you thought you were going to put on your own channel and get 4 views for. So because as you probably know yourself, like YouTube's not exactly it's a tough cookie to crack, isn't it? So it's to get it onto something like that was, yeah, it was really cool, and it did help a lot. We have got, we have gained fans from that EP who followed us into Thy Kingdom Cold as well, and they're still here, and they're really enjoying the music. So yeah, it did have a massive impact. And so it was the same with it was inevitable that, like, Simon Smith deciding to join the project, that was also going to come with, a lot of people getting excited about it as well. They also, and again, the Black Metal Promotion community very familiar with him and his work. So yeah, so there was some positive, attention from that as well. So yeah, no, it is great if you can get on there. Absolutely.
So the guys that you have in the band with you, where and how did you connect with them? Like, how did how did those relationships begin? How did you get them involved in the band?
So Simon was obviously, he's got a massive presence on YouTube. He was working with a drummer that I was working with at the same time, and the current guitarist at the time was Dragon Crypt. He got COVID. He got really, really sick, and he said that he was going to be laid up indefinitely. And he said, if you want to find a new guitarist, then go ahead. And then the drummer, the mutual sort of drummer we were working with, he said, "Oh, I can find you. I'll have a ask around." And one of them he said was Simon Smith, and I thought he was joking. Like, I thought, yeah, all right, then he's joining. And then the next thing he was like, yeah, he wants to join. And then a day later, I was speaking to him on the phone, and that kind of and then yeah, kind of went from there with him. And yeah, it's been absolute pleasure working with him. He's been fantastic. But then you've got Tristan, who did the drums on this album. I probably know about as much about him as you do. Like, he's one of these very, very anonymous kind of people. I don't know what his real name is. I don't know. And I know I know one of the projects he's in, which is massive, but I'm not supposed to say it's massive in its sort of own realm. But
That's you swear a blood oath when it comes to that sort of thing.
He was just very like, no, 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 this is your project. Like, I don't want that. And I said, well, what do I credit you as? And he was just like, Tristan. So I was like, right, okay, so that's why it's just Tristan on the album. That's all I know about him. I'm not even too sure where he's from. I think he's from France, but I have no idea.
Well, dude, I mean, that is a great. I mean, both of those guys. It's such a great validation that they would want to be part of this. I mean, it kind of tells you what you have with Aldorfrea, right?
Yeah.
Which is exactly what I felt when I heard it for the first time. I was like, this is just a gem waiting to be picked up by a record label.
I think particularly with Simon, it was like, it was weird because we'd mentioned about when I first started doing the vocals, and I'd shown it to the members at the time. They said, "Oh, you sound like Simon Smith," and I said, "I thought, who's Simon Smith?" Me not being that sort of embedded in the community at the time, and I went on YouTube and I was like, "Oh my god, this guy!" He's like the tutorials he was doing, and absolutely unbelievable guitar work, and yeah. And then it turns out, you speak to him on the phone, just very, very down to earth. We have a good laugh, and we have a joke about the recording, and it at the time the sort of mood was just through the floor because before he joined, because it was things just weren't getting done at the pace that I wanted them to, and he kind of just sort of came in, and it just all went from there, and we were able to say, right, I've got this. Can you do this? I think the album was done writing wise when he joined. I don't think there was any songs written after he joined. I don't think. And yeah, and he was really happy to do it, and yeah, it shows on the album because some of the riffs he came up with, like the riff at the end of Lancam Seed at the very end of the album, Quelmstow, the middle parts of that, like the Leech Draka, like absolutely phenomenal. I couldn't have asked for more, and we've carried that on now. With it just being me and him at the moment, it's made the songwriting process just go to another level. And I think hopefully that's going to showcase when we do the next record, because what we're doing at the minute, I find really, really exciting, because it is what I think will be another progression from Thy Kingdom Come, very much vocally, because that sort of the frog's still there, but there's a bit of more exploration of depth and things like that, and there's some really cool tales to tell as well. So, and the music it's wonderful. Like it's from his point of view, and I think it makes you play better. It gives you more when you've got musicians like Simon and Tristan who are just very, very, very well advanced. You improve yourself, and you kind of push yourself a bit more, and you try and keep up and things like that. I remember there was we have like a bit of banter back and forth about songs, and we was doing one the other week, and he did something on a song, Simon, and it was just like, how is he playing that? And me asking him for advice, he literally just turned around and said, "It's just one of life's mysteries, mate. You'll have to get on with it." And it was just like, okay, we'll do it like that, shall we? So, and you just like, that's what I mean. You just kind of push each other to do it, and whenever I want a change doing, because what I'll do is he'll throw a mix out, and I'll be like, right, change this, change that, change that. There's no drama, there's no belly aching. You just kind of get on with it, and that's the beauty of it, I think. And I think that's what shows. It does show in the songs as well, that there's almost just like a really positive vibe. Well, for me anyway, knowing, having recorded it myself, there's a very positive vibe, and then that will definitely transition into the next album as well.
Yeah. So in terms of the next record, it sounds like you're reasonably far down the track of creating that.
Yeah, the second album, we're writing. It's certainly not finished. probably written about maybe half the songs, and we've got sort of rough mixes and things like that. But it's already one of them. Like, I'm really excited to release, because it's a bit different. It's still very, very much Aldorfrea, but I still think it's still that one step further, where it's not gonna have carbon copies of, you can listen to a band, you can binge a band and not really know what songs from what album. And that's something that I'm not trying to sort of break the wheel with that, but I do want this album to be sort of like the older, more mature brother of Thy Kingdom Cold sort of thing. Because obviously I mean, Thy Kingdom Cold for me is it's a debut album. I can sort of take the hit on any kind of like feedback or anything like that. But I really enjoyed the album. I really enjoyed the stories in them and the recording process and everything. And listening back to it's so cool. But this next album, I really feel like this is where it's really going to hopefully sort of immerse people into these songs, and just hopefully learn something interesting along the way.
Would you consider taking the band, on the road, or stop playing shows as a like a performing unit?
We've spoke to the matriarch about this about a week or so ago. The thing is with gigging is that I never say never to gigging. Like, I believe it will happen. I've no reason to believe it wouldn't, but it's just there is a lot of hurdles to jump through when it comes to, Simon lives on the complete opposite side of the country to me. I'm in the northwest. He's in the very southwest. He's down in Dorset. So logistically, we need to find a couple of live band members, which isn't that much of an issue. But finding a mutual place to rehearse for shows. But so there is a lot of hoops to jump through. But yeah, absolutely, I don't see us never gigging. I would like to preferably maybe get another album out first, just to make the shows a bit more diverse musically. But yeah, I'd like to say that we will be gigging eventually. We are going to sort of sit down. We're going to sit down hopefully with Matriarch sometime soon, and we can sort of hash out how we would actually do it, because we have spoke about it, and I've never said never to playing live. It is just it's a bit of a mountain to climb, but it would be worth it. I think it would be. There is apparently a bit of demand for it at the minute, apparently. So it's something that, if the opportunity arises, absolutely, yeah. Basically, yeah. If the opportunity is there, yeah, we'll do it. But it's as long as everything can come together, then then we'll move forward and see what we get, and go from there.
Awesome. Well, dude, like I said, I'm absolutely psyched for you. Just for the success you've had thus far. I think it's very well deserved. And like I said, it's something I've been. I was behind the band from the second that I heard it. Hopefully you kind of picked that up through the podcast as well. But very much looking forward to whatever it is that you guys end up doing next. And we will definitely have to catch up again at some point down the road.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, it's been a pleasure. It's been honestly, I've been a fan of the show for a while, so. Particularly since the Gala episode, it's been really cool listening in every few weeks. So thanks for having me on, and I'm sure we'll speak again.
All right, my brother. Take care of yourself.
Take care. Cheers.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much to Cwellere for coming on the show. A really fascinating conversation, book ended by an absolutely kick-ass track. The song is called Candida Novice. It's off the new Aldorfrea album, Thy Kingdom Cold, available through Matriarch Records. And I'll definitely have, if I can, the founder of Matriarch Records on the show at some point as well, because it'd be very interesting to hear her experience of getting into the industry. Being a woman in a traditionally male-dominated scene like the one we have, and I have spoken to her a little bit offline. She seems like a pretty fascinating character. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I am going to make like a tree and scram. And $5 if you can give me the reference, or if you can, if you know the movie that I just referred to there. But I will be back next week, Tuesday. I do want to play out with another track by an independent band that I am very, very impressed with. One of their members reached out to me on Facebook recently, told me to check them out, loved what I heard. The band is called Procession of Spectres. They put out an EP back in 2020 called MMXX, and the track that I'm going to play for you as I sail off into the sunset is a song called The Horseman. Whatever it is you are doing, wherever it is that you are, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see all of you bad motherfuckers again next week.